Welcome back to Breakfast Central. The National Union of Electricity Employees has ordered a total withdrawal of services, citing unpaid salaries, lack of working tools, and failure to implement the national minimum wage. The union circular demands immediate redress, or it says the strike will continue raising the specter of a countrywide power shutdown similar to disruptions seen during past stoppages. Who will keep the lights on? Who pays the price? And what is the federal government doing to avert another blackout threat by the Union of Electricity Employees? Joining us for this discussion this morning is Mr. Sam Amadi. Good morning very much, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. We seem to be having issues with your audio. Could you ensure that...
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Great.
Okay.
Now, what's your take on this new threat of industrial action by the National Union of Electricity Employees?
Well, I think first, this kind of threat of industrial action causes panic to consumers who essentially would be frightened at the prospect of, blackout. Again, this is a very important sector, electricity sector, dealing with almost every aspect of our life. So you can imagine what will happen to homes, schools, hospitals, and how people feel the drop in productivity arising from this. And of course, the cost of looking for alternatives, especially in a period where petrol is selling at a high price, diesel at a high price. So really it's traumatic. But again, it's not new. It looks like we always get ourselves caught in this big bat between government and union. And what makes it really dangerous is that Electricity Workers Union is a strong union. Unlike some of the other unions that may not have very quick power of sanction and very effective. So each time they threaten to do something and they do it, you feel it. Other unions may not have that kind of leverage. So this is a very, very powerful union. And I think government recognizes that for now, when they shut down, basically we can't do anything about it. So I guess the problem will be some late-minute effort at negotiation and heading off full implementation of this proposed strike if it does not happen. But this is regrettable that it's always these basic issues, welfare, agreements. Now they add the issue around the unbundling of the TCN, that means the creation of the National Independent System Operator. So I know that unions are always maximizing their value, and sometimes that pits them against government. But I think a more strategic, open and transparent management would reduce these resorts to industrial action.
Just to confirm, there's an update that says that there was an emergency meeting convened by the Minister of Power, represented by senior officials of the ministry and attended by officials of the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment. And it was said that this update, and that after hours of deliberation, both sides agreed to resolutions that paved the way for the suspension of the industrial action. So we've seen multiple sources. On one side, there are those who report that the strike has been suspended. On the other side, there are those who are still holding that the strike will hold. So we don't know what the true position is, and we're wondering if you can help us with some clarity.
Well, what I think will happen, I suspect, like I told you, this is a very strong union, and government forget the pretense. The last minute they'll get back to table with this union. But look, when I was next chairman, sometimes they will say, oh, they will threaten, and then the government will say, we're going to drag the Nigerian Corps of Engineers, the military Corps of Engineers to go. They can't, because these guys, even the engineers, they're not familiar with the grid. So when the electricity union threatens, and they're going to switch off from Oshobo, if their staff in Oshobo switch off from the National Control Center, bingo, that's gone, that's it. So I think it's likely true that typical of government, late minute. They're going to rally up, talk to these guys, promise heaven and hell. As okay, you know what? Suspend it. Let's have now a good faith conversation. We are willing. And so I want to believe that they will do that, because they can't have this strike stay on for 2-3 days. It's not going to happen. So if that happens, it's going to be tragic at a large dimension to families, to home, even to government. Especially government is struggling. This government is struggling a lot with reputation, struggling with everything. So I do think they will find a way to either coerce or bribe, seduce, or convince the leaders of the
But regardless of what they do, coerce, seduce, it's just going to be a stopgap measure. Can we have a final solution to this? Because it didn't start from this administration. The union talks about unpaid salaries, lack of tools, non-implementation of the national minimum wage, and so many demands. And you feel, these are very commonsensical demands. And for a critical sector like electricity, that healthcare, your economy basically depends on it. It's a lifeline. It's a critical infrastructure that the government will pay serious attention to it. What can be done to stop this from reoccurring every 6 months, every other year, and just take care of the evils in the issues with regards to the electricity sector? Is it something that is overwhelming and can't be fixed?
I think you're very, very correct. If you look at those laundry list of grievances, nobody should be talking about the national minimum wage implementation now. I mean, it should be taken for granted. There should be no fact that some people say, oh, because this is called a national minimum wage, and it was negotiated by NLC and government. If NLC grudgingly agreed to that minimum wage, so what that means is that government gave it. NLC grudgingly, in fact, still now, NLC still facing flex from people who thought they perhaps gave in too early. So the least expected of government is to immediately pay that minimum wage. It shouldn't be an issue for them. So it's so sad that part of the grievance is minimum wage. Now, April salary, since April, you've not paid these workers. And I think that's true, because I have a young boy who works in TCN who has not received his salary since April. I don't see why government would owe workers for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. So what do you expect them to do? And that builds to the corruption in the system, and that builds to the collapse of the regular collapse of the system, the grid. Because if these guys are not paid, they're going to go out looking for what to do, and nobody pays attention to the grid. And that's why I think that part of what we are suffering, let's forget about expansion of capacity, but optimizing the availability, is because the workers are not focused. So this is a double whammy. Government is not paying these families, and they are suffering with their families, and perhaps some are going to crime, corruption. But at the same time, they're not even working well, because they're demotivated. And that's why you're struggling. So people think, oh, we're going to sign an agreement with Siemens, we're going to look for loan, this and that, we're going to give bailout. That's not really the problem. The problem is that there's a very low productivity in this sector. And that's why I've said that if you have a good task force that enforces, productivity, and now on the task, you're going to optimize hour of service delivery without even increasing the capacity, because you see the difference between expansion of capacity and optimization. So when people are motivated, paid, then they focus, they stop the level of frequency of outages, they pick up and clear lines more effectively. So I think that is really sad that the government struggles with this basic. And then again, it's possible for a country to have fiscal challenge. But that means that the workers themselves will be the first to know that our leaders are also getting a haircut. So when a government is spending like a drunken sailor, when a government is spending on projects that are totally irrelevant to development and to well-being, then they can't tell workers that they shouldn't get what negotiated. So I can understand two scenarios where a country has a fiscal crisis and the country's leaders communicate, not just in words, in action. And their citizens said, you know what, this is a low time. Even though we've had disagreements, we're going to play dead brain for some time to allow our country float. But they can't be saying that if you see leaders living the worst kind of life, blowing billions on projects that are basically prestige or self-serving. So I think that the failure to honor these agreements is what is driving this incessant industrial action, and it's not explainable. And I can say, oh, workers, be patriotic. I say, oh, tell people things are difficult, but nobody can really say that in a credible way when all around you, what you're seeing is aplomb, luxury, waste. And so the quality of leadership is a problem. Leadership is not coherent, it's not strategic, it's not even disciplined, and it's not focused and not transparent. And so it's a shame that we're going to be doing this ding dong. Workers, whether in the health sector, in the sector, in every sector, they will cry and threaten, and the government will come with palliatives and maybe band-aid and commitment and promise, and they will kick the can again for a couple of months, and then we'll see that, especially in the health sector. So every time there's a proposed strike, there's a heading off. Next time there's a proposed strike, they strike and head it off, either through whatever means. But the underlying problem, the basic issues of welfare of workers are not addressed. At the point, you have to address either the workers themselves share those ideas and see that perhaps those demands are necessary, or you fulfill them. There must be a conclusion where we don't have to be coming back every season talking about these agreements that are not fulfilled. Either we conclusively fulfill them, or we renegotiate them in a transparent, decisive manner, and the workers buy into the vision of leadership and management.
Okay, Goal 7 of the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals provides for affordable and clean energy. We are still talking about being able to pay salaries, being able to honor agreements. How far are we from achieving this goal?
So we are very far from achieving this. Take, for example, we're talking about salaries. How about connectivity? We have very low connectivity. At least 40% of Nigerian communities don't even have access. So we are even trying to make sure those who have access to power have some reasonable hours of service. But we're not even thinking around the many communities who are totally unserved or who are underserved. So we are still far from that. We have the lowest wattage per capita of electricity access probably in the world. But if we're one of the lowest in West Africa, we're one of the lowest in the world. And that means that every person in Nigeria accesses less electricity than an average person in Ghana, even in Niger, places there where we probably supply them some megawatts because of our population. So these are issues that are critical to assessing access and consumption of electricity. And again, we are far because our management processes and leadership quality means that there's no expected leapfrogging. Where population is growing, we're urbanizing at a fast pace, and then you expect more demand. Electricity demand is going to be higher, and then you are not seeing quantitative increase in capabilities, in provisions, in availability. So I think that we're not even closer anymore. In fact, the tragedy is that in real terms, in other indicators, we are perhaps further down than we were 8 years ago. That's really the troubling fact, that if you put all things together, we've actually made movement backwards slightly than we've made forward. And that's really bad because with our energy deficiencies and deprivation, we need to be making movement forward in geometrical proportion. We need to be expanding at a rapid rate to catch up with urbanization, to also provide facility for our development needs and our economic goals that government sets for itself. So this is not good at all. We are nowhere coming to where we are going to deal with, solve the problem.
Now, Mr. Amadi, I do appreciate your frankness as a former insider and one who's very familiar with the workings of the electricity system in Nigeria. But I mean, from our discussion so far this morning, doesn't look like there's much cheerful news with regards to that sector. Are there any low-hanging fruits? Are there any positives that you've seen so far in moving us towards a more sustainable and reliable energy system in the country?
I think the good news is that the government is not disrupting the structure and the policy plans so much. I mean, Nigeria has only one thing for me, or one of the few things going right now is that we've attained some consistency in the general outlay of our energy policy, right from the dying days of President Obasanjo in 2000, where the early days of Obasanjo in 2001, where the National Electric Power Policy was formulated, till towards the end in 2006, when NEXT started, and Yaradua, Jonathan did a lot of the reforms, and then Buhari and Tinubu have continued. So that's continuity, and that speaks for something good. That at least if there are going to be revisions, it's at the margin. The broad outlay remains the same. The second thing perhaps people will say is going on is that if you look at the companies, they are declaring profits, in spite of the fact that we don't have power. So it means that privatization, typical across the world, results in better profitability for new owners of the companies, because they're going to throw out dead workers. They're going to do their best to starch the leaking revenues, and then try to improve on revenue management. And again, they're profitable. Look at all their companies; they're profitable. But power is not growing. Quality is not improving that much. So, typical of anybody who has studied privatization in the world, in the UK, elsewhere, is that the first thing that gets done well is the companies get profitable for obvious reasons. They are maximizing their profit, reducing losses. But the difficult side of privatization and energy reform is taking a win-win. So you improve the fiscal health of the companies owned by private sector, you improve the public side of it by improving power delivery, reducing costs, and improving time of consumption, hours of consumption. That has not happened. That's really difficult to do. And that's where leadership in the public sector matters. How do we ensure that these companies are getting financially better by reducing their losses, that they are also improving the quality of service? So the real challenge now for this sector is to translate this new outlook, this maybe positive outlook, to investments, and ensure that those investments themselves are managed in a way that we see steady, sustained improvement in both the quantity, meaning hours of consumption, and the quality of hours. And this is important because the more we improve power supply, we reduce the cost of business, even cost to homes, we improve domestic human development indicators in terms of maybe health, in terms of education, and of course we improve social safety, because if our neighborhoods are well lit because we have lights everywhere, you see a decline in crime and other attitudes. So this has an electrifying effect on human development and economic growth. So I think that's where we are now. We need to shift this, but shift a little bit so that not just the companies are healthy, but let the public be healthy. Let there be more light, let there be more investment, let there be more efficiency, really, in terms of the supply, distribution, transmission of electricity. And that's where the rubber meets the road. So some fair comments, some good, like basically in terms of policy continuity, more maybe in terms of now the companies are, government is no longer dealing with totally bankrupt companies. We're dealing with companies that are slightly profitable in significant ways, but we need to have to deal with electricity industry where consumers are getting benefit, right, and where supply is improving, radically.
I completely agree with you that we look forward to having steady, sustainable, not just quantity, but also the quality of electricity that is being transmitted here in Nigeria. Mr. Sam Amadi, the former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for your time and insight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.